righty, it looks like the attendee list has leveled off. I want to thank everybody for joining us. Once again, Ken Kibler, Director of Training, Client Business Support for eTruckBiz. Today we're going to go through the weekly business update. And as always, if you have any questions, please put them in the chat or the Q&A. And without further ado, I'll turn it over to Jeff Walczak.
Okay, thank you very much, Ken. And as we always need to remind you that eTruckBiz is not door sponsored or anything else by FedEx Corporation.
Share that screen. There we go.
I knew that the whole time.
Exactly.
So we're not FedEx, right? That's right. But Becca is Becca, and she has a free offer for us.
I sure do. Thank you. So peak season is one in July through September, not November through December like most people would think. So in order for us to plan for a successful peak, we need a couple things aligned. So we would need a budget. We want to set your baseline before your volume hits. You're going to need an expense plan to guard every dollar in real time, and then your easy number to know if you're winning every single day. And let me explain to you how we can help you with this. So to start off, step 1 of 3 is going to be that standard budget development. We want you to stop guessing, and this is going to be kind of like your guideline. This is built specifically for the FedEx P&D model. It's going to estimate your expenses the way that FedEx engineers them. So as you can see on the example template, every service provider has the same expenses, but given your unique characteristics and your negotiated contract, these percentages are not going to be the same throughout every service provider. So we can tell you what FedEx believes you should be spending. We're kind of like giving you this guideline to how much percent should you be spending of your revenue on fuel, maintenance, wages, and so forth. So we need to first get that aligned. And then from there, we go to step 2, and then that is when we're going to create your expense plan. So they might think that you should be spending 45% of your revenue on wages. However, you're spending 55, just for example. So we need to create this plan to make sure that you are still profitable at the end of the year. And we can make some changes throughout here, give you guidance on what we need to do and so forth so that we can make that possible. But in that example right there, it's going to show based off of what your easy number is, that is going to be your owner's benefit, and you will know exactly what to expect profitability wise. So what is our easy number? This is going to tell you if you're winning or losing. Your easy number is going to be the average number of stops per dispatch. And what this does is it's going to build in an 18% or more target margin for your business. So now you know what to focus on in order to meet that owner's benefit number. It just helps you stay on track. This is a screenshot of our system in there. You know what your targeted easy number is, what you're hitting, how close you are to that, what we need to do to make changes. So if you want to get all 3 of those numbers free before peak so you can plan for a successful peak season, you're going to need, like I said, your budget, expense plan, and your easy number. You would want to book a discovery session with me. And to do that, you can go to this QR code. It's going to take you directly to a page that you can get on my calendar, or feel free to just send me an email, becca@etruckbiz.com. I will need some information from you just to create all of this, and then we can book a session together and review.
Okay, very cool. And also very important is safety. And I think Taylor's on here.
I am. Hi, Jeff. Hi, guys.
Good.
Hello.
Hi. So I just have a quick little safety tip, and that is the importance of keeping all of the documentation when it comes to the QualCert program. So it is crucial to document the entire process. So not just the final result, keep all the documentation for classroom instruction, behind the wheel training, driver evaluations, road test results, any additional coaching. So all of that is going to help show what training was provided, when it occurred, how the driver demonstrated their qualifications. That is really going to demonstrate that your business took the appropriate steps to train and qualify its driver. That's going to help reduce risk and protect your operation in the long run.
By the way, Taylor, where's the next QualCert seminars?
Yeah, absolutely. So we actually have one today in Georgia. However, we will have another one in Neosho on July 28th, and that's Neosho, Missouri. We will also be in Masbeth, New York in August, and then also in Montana in September. However, if anyone is needing a class, we are more than happy to build one around them.
All right. Thank you, ma'am. And
Absolutely.
let's see what else is going on here. Oh, yeah. The seminar for new and prospective service providers in Huntsville, September 1st to 2nd. The AC Hotel. Big time. Those of you that have been to these before know that these are great. Everybody leaves saying, yeah, that's a great. I wish I would have known about this before or whatever. So if you're thinking about getting the business, and there's some of you on here, if you're thinking about getting in or just got in and you want to know some more about what's going on, we'd be happy to talk about that. And probably Network 2.0 presentation coming up. There's still that going on out there. So just so you know, September 1st and 2nd in Huntsville, Alabama. Right. You can scan that QR code and sign up, actually. You can get a free book if you sign up, Ken. How about that? Well, it's not free, but free.
You know me and free.
That's what I said. That's what I was thinking. We were happy about free. So, volume last week. Looks like the pickup volume drifted up a little bit more. That's some good stuff there. Delivery volume, though, kind of mixed a little bit. Some packages, but less stops. It's interesting. And productivity. Whoa, look at that.
We took a jump up. Looks like at least one stop per dispatch. Got to reclaim that 100 stops per dispatch mark. Hopefully we can do that this week.
Gotta have it. Gotta get there. Gotta have it. All right, a little bit of news. This is kind of rearing its head again. Amazon shipping. I don't know what they call it. Amazon. It's not Amazon shipping. It says Amazon is pushing to quickly grow volume for its U.S. delivery offering through lower shipping rates for prospective customers. Parcel pricing experts told sister publication Supply Chain Drive, or whatever that was. Amazon Shipping, the company's parcel delivery service now available to all customers, has offered proposals with prices competitive with or lower than FedEx and UPS. Said multiple experts working with shippers in negotiating and handling shipping contracts. So down here a little farther, it says Amazon was able to service 90+% of this specific client's overall distribution. In that 90% coverage, they were able to save 33% plus annually beyond FedEx.
It sounds very much like that.
Which is very interesting because they don't make any money. So now I think they're gonna, what are they doing? What are they doing? Meanwhile, we're hearing that the probably year plus that it's been offered or it's been in the works for a year or so. How many of you out there are getting a ton of rural Amazon packages? Say, yeah, I'm getting a bunch of Amazon rural packages. They seem to be flooding the system now, which, great. They want to do a price war and then they get the stops and packages and then they give them to FedEx. Okay. Now, there's a lot of new folks on here, and I see some veterans in here too. That's fine, but sometimes we don't talk about or we don't recognize some of the risks to running this business, right? There are risks, believe it or not. Your drivers don't think there's any risks. They think everything's just great, but you, the owner of the business, you know that there are some. So let's try to go through some of the risks that are involved in this business. The other thing here is if it'll work. Why are we talking about this right now? Because the environment has changed a lot over the last 2+ years. I think all of you would agree with that. It's still a great business opportunity. It's just different now, right? So there are some of us on here. I'll bet you there's a couple of you. I think I see your names on here. You go all the way back to the RPS days. And do you think some things have changed since then?
Not just the color of the trucks.
Right. That one or two things have changed, and it's a ton of things, but there's some risks involved with the business. And if, here we're going to talk about 10 of them. Actually, the blog post that we have has 18 of them, but we're going to talk about 10 of them. Okay, this is not a FedEx bash session or FedEx bash fest. These are legitimate things you guys need to be thinking of, aware of. We're not saying that it's an imminent threat, but there's some things to think about. All right, first thing is there are what we'll call capital risks, especially you folks that are either brand new or are thinking about getting into the business. We need to think about having some capital, right? We need to have some money backed up so that when we get into the business, things are going to happen, change, and you're going to have to be able to pay for that, right? You don't want to get into this business and go, yep, I got $5,000 ready to go in case something happens. No, that's not going to get it. Some people's operating costs average anywhere from $34,000 to $38,000 a week. What happens if the volume takes a dive? It's probably a good idea based on the size of your operation to have a couple $100,000 either in the bank or have access to it, right? Have a credit line or something in case something happens and you gotta get in there, right? What would happen if settlement goes down? It usually doesn't, and thank God it doesn't. Usually we're in pretty good shape as far as the volume goes, which is one of the good things about being in this business, but nothing's saying that it couldn't, right? Sometimes
I had something there, Jeff.
Oh, please. Yes, sir.
Say you lose 3 drivers in 1 week and you go into contingency, and all of a sudden then you're getting charged back. So you're not going to get the revenue for those 300, 400 stops that are covering, and you're going to pay the cost of FedEx delivering those. So once again, there's capital risk there.
Yeah, now hopefully, we don't want to do that, but to mitigate that risk, we need to have our hands on a credit line. I'm not saying to go out there and borrow tons of money. I'm just saying you need to be able to do that if you have to. Okay, another along the financing line here, if you want to call it that, is SBA financing. If you use SBA-backed financing, and many do, you can't let the drivers run your operation because it's not going to be profitable, and we're going to have a hard time making our payment on our SBA financing. Now, the problem with SBA financing is what? Usually SBA 7A financing comes with some sort of guarantee and a collateral commitment. What do most people use for collateral when they're getting an SBA loan?
Maybe their house.
Yep. So just keep that in mind. We've seen people default on SBA loans, and guess what happens? They lose their house. It's a risk, right? The other thing about SBA financing is it's usually tied to the prime rate plus a margin or plus a markup. And right now we're okay, but back to 3-4 years ago, something like that, interest rates were crazy and people had a hard time making their payments because that's a significant amount of money if the prime rate goes up too far. Okay, another risk is it's not necessarily that you're going out of business, but maybe we're not making any money, right? The risk of breaking even and only breaking even, right? A lot of people, there's a lot of folks out there that are right what we're talking about right here, where, okay, they're not going to lose their house, but they're not realizing any of the any margin, let's say greater than 2 or 3%, right? You're spinning your wheels.
Back to that easy number, that margin's figured at 18%. So now you're
Right.
at 2%. Where's the problem?
Right. So, we're getting by, we're working really hard. Okay, we're paying the bills, but do we have anything else to show for it? And that's a risk. And there, like I said, there's a lot of folks out there that are doing that. We think it's probably closer to the 2,000 contractor number based on what we've seen. So just know that especially if you're getting into this business, it's a risk. Now, we know how to get past that. There's a way to do it. Just know that some people don't. Okay, another risk is there are some costs that you can't control, right? So you can't necessarily control big fuel price swings. Yes, usually on the P&D side, there's the per stop fuel surcharge, which helps with that sometimes, but when fuel prices fly around wildly, it doesn't necessarily catch up with it, right? There's also inflation. So like inflation, we can't necessarily do anything about inflation. So if we go back to 2020, 2022, 2024, inflation was going crazy nutso, and we couldn't do anything about it, but just everything cost a whole hell of a lot more. You can't control that. And then another cost you can't control, another risk to this business is the labor market. Sometimes based on whatever conditions, labor costs more than it used to, right? Problem with that is your contract is fixed. It's fixed in, you're getting certain charges. You can't necessarily say, oh, I got to pay an extra $1 an hour for everybody or whatever it is. And then you turn around and bill your customer for it. You can't do that in this business. So how do you mitigate this? We were talking about having a couple extra bucks set aside. You have to have some cash that helps you with this. And then there's longer term things you can try to do. Like in the case, I just talked to somebody this morning about renegotiating their contract and making the case to do so. You can do that, but still, in the short term, costs you can't control, you're going to have to be able to deal with them. Anything on that, Mr. Ken?
Not really. I mean, there's a couple levers you can pull to help yourself. Of course, that's always how do I control my labor? Well, make sure that I'm hitting my easy number. And then, I can keep my labor as a percentage of revenue. And can I improve 1 stop per hour? And will that give me 8 more stops per dispatch? Those are things that you can control. But the fuel cost, quite frankly, it doesn't, even with the stop charge going up, it doesn't keep pace with what that cost is. I've done the math and it doesn't keep pace.
Okay. So some costs are another risk is the risk of it going up, costing more is, right? It might be one of the fastest growing lines on your P&L. Lately here, at least commercial auto premiums have almost doubled, which can equate to about 10 cents a mile, depending on what you're driving and your line haul guys. That's a whole nother thing. But 10 cents a mile on the line haul side of things, that's a nightmare. But it's also material on the P&D side of things. And then since 2017, fleet insurance rates have risen. So insurance is a risk. It's something you have to pay. It's a necessary evil. You can't do anything about it other than you got to pay the premium. So insurance costs rising is a risk that you're going to have to shoulder as a contractor. All right. We'll call this, especially for those that are new getting into the business, we'll call something called acquisition risks. So who are you listening to about how this business works? So yes, FedEx has their 4 days at 4 day, 5 day, whatever it is. Come learn stuff from FedEx, which is great because there's a lot of stuff that you wouldn't otherwise know how to do. But what they're teaching you is what they want, what they require of you, not how are you going to do that, or not necessarily how are you going to run the business part of your business. They're going to teach you about operational standards, what you got to do, on and
They're
on.
probably not going to tell you about the cost it's going to be to run that business either, correct?
They don't, your cost is not their concern. They don't care what it costs. What they care about is what? Providing service, making sure this truck gets from A to B. All the different things that you need to do. That's what I'm saying. They're going to teach you about the things the results you need to get, but how to get there. And then the risk is, where are you going to learn that kind of stuff? Are you going to learn that from watching some cool videos like now on YouTube? I don't know. Are you going to ask other contractors? As we've said before on other videos, other contractors, while they're good people, may not necessarily be interested in helping you, especially the new guy, out, right? Why not, Bob and Ken?
Because they have something to gain if you lose.
That's right. And they have drivers that, boy, a couple of your good drivers would look good in a different uniform, right? It's all kinds of things going on there. So other contractors, good people, nice guys, nice people, just be careful what's going on there. And this, at least if you ask me, I'll tell you that this is the biggest risk you're going to face, especially if you're new if you've taken over or purchased a new operation. The belief, we'll call it the inherited manager risk problem, which means if you take over an operation and you've been told by some broker someplace, oh, it's got a manager, the manager's great, everything's running fantastic, oh, it's turkey, and just don't break your ankle going to the mailbox to pick up your check. If you're hearing that, sounds good, doesn't it? But what's really going on there? Somebody's exiting, right?
Something isn't right in that operation. And they might not be making as much money as they thought they were going to make. No one's ever left because they were making too much money.
Right. So who knows what's going on there? You take over an operation, and here's Joe, the BC. And Joe's a happy, smiling guy, and he's absolutely fantastic. Hey, everything's great. I got you. We got it all. You ever stop to think that operation is running the way it is because Joe's running it?
It's just like, you get a 5,000 different McDonald's and they all taste the same, pretty much, or pretty close. But if you ask 5,000 different contractors how to do something, it's different 5,000 different times. There's just no consistency.
Right, but what if you take over an operation?
Plan.
What if you take over an operation was probably marginal, if not struggling, and it comes with a BC? What would you say to that?
You should probably interview him just to make sure he's got everything that you want to do in this business. Your goals have got to be his goals.
The financial results will not change because of the AO. They'll only change because having the BC do the right things.
The operation is like what Ken's saying. What the operation is likely in the shape it is in because of the existing BC. How many times? How many of our business growth and support system clients have BCs that have been there, done that, but they're still there, and guess what? They're still being there and still doing that. So anyways, that's a big risk, is if you take over an operation that's got a BC that's getting the results they're getting, and if the results aren't good, there's probably a reason for it, right? Okay. So along those lines, people risks, and it's not just the BC, but it's drivers. Same thing there. You're inheriting drivers that may or may not be good for the operation. Go back to the BC thing, you need BCs who can juggle three things at once. Leading drivers, maybe managing finances, and then of course handling the daily operation. That's a full plate. That's a rare combo. A lot of folks excel at one or two of those things. but usually finding somebody that can do all three is difficult. So anyway, there's just people risks. The other contractors poaching your drivers. People risk. There's the risk, and this is the silent killer. We've talked about this before, but driver turnover. So some turnover, of course, is good, but turnovers cost a lot of money, right? And that's a risk. If you're turning over, it seems these days, people, I don't know what it is. Something's going on out there right now. Everybody's hiring 2, 3, 4 new people every week. Folks, that's costing you a fortune. That's a risk, turning over that many folks. Well, I can't do anything about it, Jeff. People can't do this business anymore. Well, are we training them? I don't know.
Is your BC on the truck training them, or do we just give them to a driver?
Which is probably the worst thing you can do unless you have a lead driver that you can trust, that you know they're do a good job training.
And we also hear too, you were alluding to it earlier, Jeff, but FedEx pay me more, I could give my drivers more. And then you're still at 1-2%. Nope, you got to make sure you've got enough money on the van. Packages equal money. If you don't have enough, that's where your shortfall is. And again, it may not be the BC's fault. It may not be the driver's fault. It may be yours because you haven't told the BC, led them in the direction of, okay, we need X amount of dollars on the van. That equates to, 125 stops per day. Drivers will complain and stuff, but they're only doing what they're given. If you give them more, they'll do more. Now, can you increase that by 150% and everything be fine? No, you got to make small gains to get to the big game, but you got to have them on the road 8.5 hours. So anything under that is, if you get 7.5 to 8, you're close, you're making some money. But if it's anything under 7, you're just breaking even if you're lucky.
Okay, so as we're trying to say, I think there's lots of people risks. Yes, you got to take people risks. A lot of these risks we're talking about, you got to take them, because to run this business, you have to take these risks. You just have to be ready to deal with them. As Mr. Crawford said here in the chat, says Blockbuster Video wouldn't take a risk. Yeah, that's right, for sure. And we're not trying to tell you these are all bad things. These are just things you gotta try to overcome, right? So there's also, of course, compliance risk. So a lot of folks think, well, negotiating my contract, and really it's all about, just got to make sure I make service. We got to pass our payroll audits. We got to make sure we're putting qualified our drivers, or how does this work?
Appreciate that.
There you go. I don't listen.
No,
But you can lose your contract for not making service, and you can lose your contract for compliance risk. Is something you don't necessarily want to take, because if you get busted with compliance integrity items, we know for a fact that those things will lead to contract termination sooner than missing service for a few days in a row. That's for sure. And finally, your FedEx business relationship risks. What does this mean? They can change your CSA at any time. Didn't used to be that way. Now it is. Now, are they going to go out and change it 7 times in a year? Probably not. However, there's been 1 or 2 that they have changed a few times. There's just a lot of things with your relationship with FedEx that can change. And as it changes, it can be risky, right? It's also risky. Here's another risk you're taking. If you're a contractor, or if you're thinking about getting in this business, you're going to have one customer. And that one customer is, in our case, FedEx. So that's not so cool to have one customer, to be quite honest with you, because you're at the whim of that one customer, but it's what we signed up for.
So you got to make sure that you meet that customer's expectations and you interact with that customer, but you still manage your business and the expenses in your business that allows you to profitably meet those expectations. And if for some reason you can't, you have to look at the root cause why. And sometimes there are some bad contracts out there. Can you be renegotiated? Can you prove that your costs are actually this and they have to be this to get the job done? But because you can't go to another customer and say, hey, I want you to give me $1.5 million worth of business. because they're just not out there.
Right. So that's 10 out of the 18. If you go to the blog post, you'll be able to see the rest of them if you want to see them. But does anybody have any comments, like Mr. Crawford here? I don't mind opening up your microphone if you want to do that, especially some of you veterans. There's a lot of newer folks on here, or will be watching this on YouTube, so they want to hear what you got to say. Here we go. Uh-oh. So some of you open. I don't know if it's working. Do your raise your hand thing if you want to say something.
I'm one of those fellas that they mentioned earlier, started with RPS, and it's as different as night and day. And, there's the thing about risk is there's a difference between being fearful and being foolish. We have to be moving ahead. But I can give all kinds of illustrations. As I mentioned, Blockbuster Video, there's Nokia, I think it was, actually invented the touchscreen phone, but they didn't want to take it to market because they would be competing with themselves. So the iPhone beat them to it. And where's Nokia today? Kodak said, yeah, everybody will keep having film. And we're all into video photography right now. And so the point is that we may not like change, but we have to adapt. And there's actually scientific evidence of this, that the brain is not wired for perfection. It's wired to adapt. But Amazon came into the picture, online shopping came into the picture. So the business model has changed. And I think there's great opportunity if we adapt to what's there. But if we only think about what we wish was there, we're not going to make it.
Great points.
Great stuff. What about you other veterans on here? You want to give some wisdom to the new folks? Boy, they would want it.
Stephen Dunn's been around a while, that's for sure.
I know. And you want to take a chance and see if he'll say something?
We got Rodney Flynn and Stephen Dunn with the availability to talk right now
How do you see that? I don't even see that.
in the attendee list.
Look at this.
Yeah, been hanging out with Dark Web Gary.
Yes.
No, but I think Steve made some great points. These 10 risks, they are there. They're not earth-shattering. They are risks that you can definitely manage, mitigate, and mitigate successfully. As Jeff said, you've got one customer, manage that relationship while managing your business, and it can be very, very rewarding for you and any legacy that you want to leave afterwards. It doesn't look like we have any other questions out there. We will be back here next week at the same time, unless anybody else have anything to add. Jeff, Carrie, Bob?
Nope.
If we don't talk to you before next Tuesday, please have a safe and profitable week. Thank you very much.